Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to our channel, especially if you're here for the first time. And we are so blessed to have Raylene here. She is an awesome medium and she knows so much about astrology and crystals and so many things. And she is going to channel Erik and also include her own wisdom on ego and intuition. So, Raylene, nuance. How do you pronounce your name? I want to put the
Raylene
Inye
Nuance.
in it. I want to put the Inye in it, right? But
Lost you. It's Raylene Nuanis.
Nuwanis. Okay, so there's no Inye. I always try to put one.
You can add it if you want it.
No, none of it's not supposed to be there. And her information is in the description box below. So, Paula, if you don't have it, let me know and I'll get it for you. She runs the YouTube channel. All right. Hi, Erik. I love you.
He says, hello, Mama. I love you very much. He's saying hi to everybody. He's waving with both his hands.
Oh,
And he is really excited and pumped to talk about this subject. He says that there's more than just ego and intuition. He also wants to talk about instinct because
that was it. Instinct. I knew it started with an I. Oh my God. Okay, yeah.
he says, but Mom, we're going to do all three of them.
Oh, okay.
So first off, Erik is talking about the ego and why we have ego. He's explaining that the ego is here to protect us. It's here to protect our body. It's here to protect us from certain events that we experience. And the ego can also cause damage. And so it has a balance where it needs to be weighed out. You have to weigh out the ego and you have to balance it. Because if the ego is in balance, then you're going to find yourself being very egocentric. And when this takes place, you're going to have problems with judgment. Ego is connected to judgment.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to judge through the filter of ego.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but ego, you're right, it's for survival. That's the main tool. That's the main reason it exists, right? All right, go ahead.
Bingo.
Yeah.
He says, bingo, it is
Bingo.
survival, Mom. And he says, since we are on the topic of survival, survival is also connected to instinct. He says instinct is very much associated with the natural thing that you have connected to you. He says, if you are placed in front of a dire situation, a burning building, flames, huge, he's drastic. He says, you're not going to run into this burning building, are you? Your instinct is going to tell you to stay away. It's dangerous. It's hot. You don't want to go in there. And so that is your instinct naturally telling you, no, it's not a safe place to go into. And that is instinct. He says there's also parental instinct. When you become a parent, there's mother's instinct, there's father's instinct. For first-time parents, there's not a book that shows them how to do parenting. They learn through instinct, trial and error.
I didn't know that was different than just regular human instinct. That's cool. Wow.
He says it is different.
But I'm sure it developed teleologically for survival of the species, so it makes sense. That's cool. All right, sorry, go ahead. I just had to say that.
He says, absolutely, Mom. It's something that has developed and evolved over time as humans have evolved and changed. The nature of growing, the nature of adapting to different situations, whether this is good or bad, there's instinct that you have to adapt to different situations and different environments. And so he says, not to confuse instinct with intuition. Instinct is where you have that instinct not to do something because there's red flags right in front of you, whether this is a burning building or whether this is the natural instinct of motherhood, parenthood. There's good instinct where it's going to protect you, and there's instinct where it's going to teach you. And so there's a fine line between instinct and intuition. Intuition is where you have a gut feeling, where your body's telling you either to make a decision and to go with it, or your body is telling you not to do it. A lot of people have intuition when it comes to going on a trip. Should they take the route of A or should they take the route of B? They didn't think they should take the route of A because there was a lot of traffic. And then they find out that there was an accident and traffic was a nightmare. And that's why they had intuition to go the other route. And so it's more of a feeling that your body is telling you versus that instinct of that knowing of, no, I'm not going to do that because the red flags are right in front of me. Intuition is that feeling that you're going.
Let me give an example and see if you agree, Eric. You know, when I had that thing with the serial killer about to kill me, you know, I didn't see him, but I felt this weird, like, sense of dread for, like, you know, several minutes before. And it made me turn my head to the right, and I watched him come down the seawall steps. I feel like that was intuition. Now, when he was about to kill me, I think my instinct told me when he asked me, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a physician and a black belt karate instructor," of course, which I'm not. And maybe that was instinct. What was that? Is that a good example?
Absolutely. He says, absolutely. That instinct was your automatic survival instinct that was there to direct you in surviving that. The intuition was telling you there's something really off that's about to happen, or there's something really bad that I'm going to experience. That there is a great example, Mom.
Now, where does ego come into that particular story or in general?
Your ego was telling you it's okay, nothing bad is going to happen. So you kept going for it and you experienced something negative. Ego wants you to believe that A, you're going to be okay.
Even when you're not?
Even when you're not. And even in the sense of relationships, you know, if you have a knowing of this person's not going to be good for me, I'm not going to have any growth in this relationship, I'm going to be down, or this person's not going to be beneficial, but your ego says, but I love him, but I want to stay with him.
Or I need to be in a relationship, otherwise I don't feel loved, I feel incomplete. Any relationship is better than nothing. That's ego talking.
Yes, absolutely. And so the ego is the thing that down talks every situation, whether this is a bad situation or a good situation. He says this is why you have to find that balance with ego, and you have to put it on the back burner, and you have to go more with this instinct and this intuition, because ego can put you in a way that's not going to be beneficial for you.
That's against, you know, the rules that ego is for survival. So somehow it must have just gotten corrupted to, you know, instead of helping you survive, into getting you into trouble. And, you know, why did that happen? Maybe because the world is just so much more complicated and it's not just about surviving, that it's more than that. Why?
He says it's the programming of ego. And this is a great example of how ego has changed very much so from 2 generations ago. He says ego was definitely more of a survival. Now where we're at, we have society that's programmed you to think a certain way and to be a certain way. Therefore, ego is influenced, and you are automatically taught that danger is not really a big thing that you have to worry about. Things like that never happen. And so the ego is programmed to think, I don't need to be in survival mode because of what it's programmed to think now. And so this is why your instinct is so much more prominent for you to follow now, because of the programming that ego has been through.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say something, I can't remember what it was. No, go on, it'll come to me. Hell, getting old.
He's over here making a farting noise. Brain fart.
Yeah, I know. And it was right on the tip of my tongue. Can you see it? No, it's not there. All right. So has technology made things worse ego-wise? Like all the kids are on their tablets and TikTok and stuff. Has that interfered? Oh, I know what I was going to say before I forget. The normalcy bias is the bias where if something horrible had not happened before, then it's not going to happen. And that, the Holocaust, the Jews didn't think what was going to happen, what eventually happened was going to happen. It can't be. That's something like that has never happened in the world before. And yet it did. So that's where ego can be swayed by bias. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And that's exactly how ego is programmed, and how ego is intended to help you with your survival. But when you have something influencing that, it's going to be programmed to a different station. He's answering the question about technology influencing kids, not only kids, but adults as well. Social media, computers, cell phones, really? Hoverboards. He says these things, right?
He just wants one for his birthday coming up, probably.
I don't know that we would trust Erik on that.
No.
But he says that the programming that is done with adults when it comes to technology, it makes them extremely judgmental. They learn a new way of program. They learn a new way of life. And now you are going to be judgmental of other people based off of, do they have this? Can they work this? And so it becomes something that influences the ego in a negative way, because the judgment becomes nasty. And so he says, if you can find that balance to where you see the good in a program, you see the good in technology, and you want to help others, and you don't want to have a big ego, says then it can be beneficial. He says, but the problem is there's not a lot of individuals that are operating from this energy of love and help and gratitude. He says gratitude is huge when it comes to the ego. If you don't have gratitude, your ego is going to be out of whack completely.
What about AI? Is that going to have any kind of effect on the triad, ego, instinct, intuition?
He's got his hands like this and he's like, oh my God. Yes. Major effect on this. He says, because people are not going to have to work as hard as they worked before. Even in terms of education, you're going to see people not working to receive what they have. This is degree wise, this is job wise, and it's because AI is taking a step out of hard work.
Making us lazy.
It is. He says hard work is needed to have lessons that support the ego. He says, even if you have a lesson that is a hard lesson, you will learn something positive out of that lesson. He says, in every bad, there's a good. In every good, there's a bad. He says, you have to look at it and you have to weigh it out. You have to balance it out. But he says, you will learn the hardship lessons you will learn the most out of. And therefore, ego's taking that out. AI is taking that out, and ego's not experiencing hardship.
Interesting. Making it easy for us. Well, can AI be used to help tap into instinct and intuition? Or is that just a soul thing, a human thing?
He says it's a human thing. It's a individual experience.
Yeah.
He says AI is not individual. It is technology. It has no feelings.
Yeah. What are some signs, Erik, of if you or someone else has an unhealthy, overbloated ego?
Judgment.
They're judging.
Negative judgment. Positive judgment is good. He says negative judgment is bad. Narcissistic behaviors, abusive individuals, people that manipulate individuals, they have
gaslighting. That's absolutely big ego territory right there.
Absolutely. And he says this is not the type of ego you want to have, or the type of ego you want to be associated with.
So what can we do to help others stomp out their ego, or we'll do that first, and then what can we do when we recognize we have a big ego to help combat against that and beat the crap out of our ego?
So he says, well, mom, you can't change somebody else's actions
Yeah.
just as well as you can't change somebody else's thoughts. That individual has to want to change their ego on their own.
Yeah. I
You
figured.
can point out certain problems or certain aspects that they're doing that are problematic or where you are not okay with the way somebody is treating you. Or if you see somebody mistreating another person, you can definitely be the voice and speak up. But it doesn't mean that they're going to respond in a polite way or
Yeah.
even change for that matter. He says what you can do is you could lead by example. You can lead by
Mm.
having a light ego, by having gratitude, love, happiness,
Yeah.
joy, by helping others that are in need, by being non judgmental, and by experiencing life on your own without placing yourself in somebody else's experience and being negative based off of what they're going through. He says it's past judgment, mom. This is something entirely different when you can have a friend that is having hardships and still be their friend and separate yourself from what they're going through.
Yeah.
He says that is leading by example. Um, when you have He says the problem with people being aware that their ego is too big, he says they're not aware of this. They don't see it. And that there is the problem when it comes to being aware of you have a big ego. Usually, when you become aware of it, you make changes. You bring those changes to you. You have a change in your environment. He says environment is huge when it comes to your ego.
Yeah.
The people you surround yourself with, the environment that you are around, whether this is work, social media, family. He says you will change that environment to change your ego. You will change your habits, your actions to change your ego. And you'll have a different way of living and you'll have a different way of viewing life and viewing others. He says those are the things that you can do to make the changes to your ego when you start to realize I am being judgmental. I don't like the individual I'm becoming. It's very egocentric.
I like that. I know that I homeschooled my kids for a while, and one exercise I had them do is write letters of gratitude to people, a teacher, fireman, whatever, but without saying who they were. I mean, anonymous. And I think that anonymity is super important in gratitude because a lot of people go, I'm so grateful for you, but and they're just virtue signaling because they want to, I'm such a good person, I'm so nice to other people. But if you do like random acts of kindness without letting the person know where that's coming from, I think that's the ultimate expression of healthy low ego.
Absolutely. He says, bingo, mom, you are right on it. Coming from a place of anonymous and not needing to receive credit for
Yes.
the response that you are
Because you
giving.
don't need that fueling your ego. You don't need credit.
Yeah.
It's like the people that put money in the tip jar. Oh my God, the Starbucks barista didn't see that, so take it out and let me make sure they see me doing it. Okay, that is definitely ego.
That is ego. He says, that's a great example, mom. He says, when you need to have recognition for the good that you've done, it is your ego that is speaking for that recognition and not the goodness of the ego of yourself. He says, great example, mom.
What can we do as parents to raise kids that don't have an unhealthy, overbloated ego?
Lead by
By
example.
example, yeah.
Be kind, be generous. Teach them that you don't have to be acknowledged for the good that you do. Being a good person is the way to live. He says, lead by example.
Yeah, that sounds good. And they need to learn how to set boundaries for themselves to protect themselves from people who do have such egos that they judge you, and they have to be able to know, hey, that's not me, that's coming from this flawed individual. Oh, I'm judging him, you're flawed. No, I mean somebody who is judging when they shouldn't be judging. I just don't want any unsolicited advice. They should tell their kids. I don't know.
Absolutely. And that there is different from ego. He says this is more along the lines of instinct, teaching your children survival instinct. what to do when they're placed in a bad situation. He says this is all about teaching your child, programming them to have a healthy lifestyle, to stay away from alcohol, to stay away from drugs, to stay away from people that are connected to any type of crime, to stay away from anything that would affect you in a negative way. And you can let them see examples by showing TV, by stories, books. And so there's a way to teach your child to program that healthy instinct in them, so that way they move forward and have a hopeful life, and they have tools to use when they come into this situation, if it's something that presents themselves. He says, but mom, even though you will give your child the tools to use, he says, you have to know that not all kids will utilize those tools. He says, curiosity is a bitch. You're something, Eric.
So how can we tell if what we're feeling is our intuition about something? Like, oh my God, I just want to go to Cozumel, but I feel I don't want to, but I feel something's going to happen. I'm scared. The plane's going to crash, whatever. How do you know that's intuition versus just ego-based fear?
He says intuition is more of a feeling, and it's not the knowing of something is going to happen, like a plane crash. He says that is more claircognizance that's connected to. He says what you're describing is ego-based fear. And that comes from an individual that is typically on autopilot and afraid of change. He says, so you want to go with that feeling more than that thought. Intuition is more feeling versus a thought.
Intuition is more feeling? Okay.
Feeling in the body.
Okay, instead of fear-based thoughts. Right.
Correct.
And it sounds like what you're saying, Erik, is intuition is not wrapped up in a bunch of emotions like ego is.
Exactly. Ego is emotions.
Okay. Fear-based emotions, probably.
Both good and bad.
Okay. But the unhealthy side of ego, is that mostly fear-based emotions?
Yes.
Okay. What can we use to decide, well, my intuition says, don't take this job. Can we use a pendulum? Dowsing rods? Is it good to ask a medium like you? Tarot cards? How do we, what tools of divination and, what gifted people should we rely on when it's a really important decision and we want to know, is our intuition right or wrong? Not that there's any right or wrong, whatever. It's all a lesson.
So he says, you really want to discern what you're trying to find out. And if you're not able to find the answer, you want to make sure that you're living in the moment and you are experiencing life, because not everything is meant to be known. You are intended to go through life and experience certain things without knowing the answer before you experience them. He says, but in the case where you do want to know the answer and you're not being blocked, he says a pendulum is good as long as you are grounded, as long as you do the proper
protection
and you are not extremely connected to the solution, the answer, or the response. He says, because your mind has the ability to influence a pendulum if you are not grounded and if you don't set those boundaries between yourself and spirit. And so it can be used. He doesn't recommend it because it is easily influenced when you are really needing an answer that's close to you, or that's important to you.
Well, I have this little stand that has a hook that I can stick my pendulum on, and so I'm not touching it. So I guess you could still probably influence it, but probably less likely, right?
Absolutely, because your energy is no longer the conduit to it. It is just simply the receiving, and the respond is coming from spirit. He says, but you still want to put your energy of protection around you. And believe in it, because if you don't believe in it, it's not going to benefit you.
If you don't believe in the prayer of protection?
Correct.
The answer.
And it doesn't, the protection doesn't to be a prayer. It's what works for you, what your belief
Yeah.
system is.
Yeah, it could be just an intention. I'm protected.
Yes.
You bad people, out, 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 out. You're not allowed here.
Absolutely.
Only people of beings of love and light. Well, there's all sorts of ways to do it. Anything else?
Sorry, lost you.
Oh, what happened to you? Did you sneeze?
No, it fell.
Oh, okay, okay, I got it. Gotcha.
So he's talking about dowsing rods. He says dowsing rods are a great tool to use. The copper alone has energy that blocks other energies from communicating with you. And he says
Oh, I
dowsing
didn't know
rods
that.
are a great tool to use. He says, however, you still want to have your protection in place and you don't want to be extremely connected to the response. He's explaining that your body is the vehicle and your emotions are your battery. And he says, where is the battery at? Is your battery running on fumes? Are you tired? Are you exhausted? Are you sad? Are you happy? Are you going through some things that your battery is not the best? Or are you in a place of wonderful bliss and you're able to have this vehicle running at its optimal capacity, speed?
Right.
He says, so you want to pay attention to how your vehicle is running and where your battery is charged, because if your battery is running on fumes, you're not going to be able to receive guidance that is accurate.
Okay. And I'm sure you can't be super hungry or super thirsty too, right?
He says, right, water
I
is
know.
huge.
Yeah, when I'm in the scalar field, everything starts to slow down when my stomach starts growling. It just takes forever to go to the next frequency. So I know that I have to eat something, and or sometimes I'm thirsty, and the same thing happens. Also, it's interesting because a long time ago, the divine team, Erik or whoever, told me to put a big copper sheet, and that's expensive, under my array of gems and whatever that I sit in front of, and I have the scalar machines, this transmitter and receiver on both sides, and also to put copper, to put a plate to put my feet on. And also I wear everything copper. Even the socks have copper infused, and copper bracelets and copper suit, etc. So I guess that's the reason is not just for conductivity, but also to make sure that other energies don't influence.
Absolutely. It is a barrier of protection around you. And also the energy that you're pulling in from other people, you're not going to receive it. It's protecting your physical body. And he says, your body tells you when you need to recharge your battery. You're running on fumes when you start to have a growling stomach. You're not giving it your all when you're not fully charged.
Yeah.
He says, so you have to step back and go and recharge.
Yeah.
He says sleeping is a great way of recharging as well. Good sleep.
I love sleeping. Love it. My favorite thing almost. All right. Anything else on ego, instinct, and intuition? This has been fascinating.
He says, not today, Mom. He says, you have been fascinating.
Oh, thank you.
Really,
Raylene has been fascinating. All right. So, Raylene, if you want, you can email me what you want to have put in the description box, and I can forward that to Pally. You want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Be sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss the next thing that Raylene and I are up to. So hit the notification bell too. Subscribe to the Atlanta Scalar YouTube channel also, and share with with those people in your life with big egos.
Share the love. Erik says bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love you, Lisa. Erik says he loves you.
Love
Bye.
you too. Bye.